Hey, welcome back. One of our recent videos that we posted to YouTube was a project on making a power tool cart. It's a really cool project. It's got 2 doors, some pull-out drawers on the inside that you can customize in all kinds of ways to make your shop a little bit more organized. Now, we had some comments on that I wanted to address in this particular video on the material that we used. For that particular project, we used Baltic Birch plywood, and that's the same as this hardware cart here. And right now in 2022, Baltic Birch is going at a premium for price. So a lot of the comments were wondering why we use such an expensive material. At the time we built it, it wasn't that expensive, so it worked out pretty well. But we have a couple of other reasons why we like using Baltic Birch plywood. You can see it right here. One of the main reasons is that it ends up being really flat and smooth. So it's fun and easy to cut to size. You don't have to deal with a lot of warping on it. Part of the reason is that the layers in Baltic Birch plywood are all consistent. Even the face veneers end up being relatively thick. There's been times I've grabbed my smoothing plane and have been able to smooth out the surface with the hand plane without worrying about cutting through that upper veneer. Another reason that we like it is because of those consistent layers in there. It has an appealing look, at least to us, so that we don't have to go through the extra step of concealing the edges with some sort of banding or edging strips. But you have other options for plywood. One is the tried and true Veneer-core plywood, where you can see it's just several layers of material with a top and bottom veneer. Now you can see that the inner layers are relatively thick compared to the Baltic Birch plywood, but that means that the face veneer is usually pretty thin, like a 1/40th of an inch or less. That means it's easier to sand through. We've also found that Veneer-core plywood can sometimes be a little bit less stable, so it can be a little wavy, inconsistent in thickness, and that kind of thing. Plus that the edge isn't as attractive. It doesn't have that uniform look that Baltic Birch does. So on this particular slant front tool cart that we made, we used maple plywood and then edged it with strips of solid maple to cover that up and clean it up. It's a couple of extra steps, but it does give you that nicer look for it. Now, when it comes to getting flat and stable, you can use MDF Core Plywood, and that's what this upper layer is. So what you have is a thick layer of MDF with your typical face and backing veneers on there. It's still that thin veneer, so you gotta watch out so you don't sand through it. But the nice thing is about MDF is that it's really smooth, really flat. Now it is heavy, especially in full-size sheets, so you wanna take that into account if you're gonna be muscling that around the shop in building your project pieces. Now that being said, you have to do something with that MDF edge. It can look okay because it's relatively uniform, but it doesn't take finish very well and it can end up looking a little stripy. Another option when it comes to sheet stock is to just go straight MDF like you see here. So no veneer, you get all the same benefits of being flat and smooth, but you don't have to worry about the face veneers. MDF takes paint really well. The surface of MDF is pretty hard, but along the edges, it can be a little crumbly if you catch it on stuff or it gets dinged up. I like to ease the edges with a chamfer or a roundover just to help prevent them from crumbling when they get kind of moved around the shop a lot. Now, you can paint it, you can leave it natural. That is all up to you. Now there's another option that you might want to consider, and that's to use solid wood. That wall cabinet behind me is made from solid wood construction lumber, and that's relatively easy, usually pretty inexpensive to find, and you can kind of pick your pieces out to get the look that you're after. Now you'll have to deal with expansion and contraction of the solid wood pieces, but it does offer another option, and any of these projects could have been built with that material. You'll also find that home centers will have pre-made glued up panels of solid wood that you can find and cut those to size, so it can save you some steps, especially if you need wider pieces. So when you're considering the materials for projects and even the plans that we show, Don't be limited by the materials that we use. If you like something better and have to balance other factors like cost, appearance, what the final look of the project is going to be, whether it's a natural finish or paint, you can choose the material that works well. And any of these projects would work great in any of the materials that I've talked about today. So I hope you learned something. If you have any other questions or comments, just let us know. Thanks.